Hi everybody. Today we're going to talk about things that sink and talk about things that float. And I have a whole basket full of things that I'm going to need your help trying to decide if we think something is going to sink or float in my bowl of water right here. First, I wanted to ask a question. What does it mean to have something sink? Do you know, Kyle, Bridget?
If it goes to the bottom in water, if it sinks to the bottom.
If it goes,
like,
if it goes
all the way down.
below, this is the surface right here at the top of the water. See where the ripples are, guys, when I do that? If it goes below the surface of the water, that means it sinks. So if that means it sinks, what do you think floating means? Where does an object that floats?
It stays above the surface.
That's right. If it stays above the surface of the water, that means it's floating. So we have a little friend who's going to help us today because he lives in the water, near the water. He loves the water. So he thinks he might have some ideas if things are going to sink or float. Now, come over here and introduce yourself.
Hey-o!
Hi. Hi. What's your name, friend?
Platypus.
Oh, that's not your name.
I'm just kidding.
Do
you know what animal I am?
He's a flamingo, right? But what is your name, Mr. Flamingo?
My name is Strawberry.
Oh, hi, Strawberry. That's probably a good idea because...
I'm pink.
Yeah, you're pink. Well, strawberries are red, but that's okay. Okay, little Strawberry. I know. Okay, so we're going to read this book, and this is called Tell Me How Ships Float. So we're going to talk about ships first, okay, Strawberry?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So.
Can I take a sip?
Sure. Okay. Now, some objects float, right, guys? And some objects sink. Some objects float so low in the water that they look like they are sinking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I'm not going to read all this part because we're going to do this in a minute. I'm going to show you some of the things. Now, are things that float big or small?
They can be both.
That's exactly right. It doesn't matter. If just because something is really little doesn't mean it's going to float, and just because something is really big doesn't mean it's going to sink. It depends on how much air is inside of something or what shape something is. Did you know that, Strawberry?
I did not.
It's true. It's true. Now, what about you guys? Do you float in the water?
No. I mean, I can, but I also go underwater.
You can go underwater.
But I do float overall.
You do float. You could float in the water. You know what makes you float? Like if people are swimming, there's a reason that they stay up on the top and your head, maybe your whole body is under the water, but your head will stay up. Do you know why?
No.
Do you know why, Kyle?
No.
Your lungs. Your lungs fill with air, and when you take a breath like that, your lungs are filled with air, and you actually cannot go under the water. And we used to play this game when I was little. We used to throw things in the pool and like rings. And if I wanted to get down, I would try to dive down, but I was not letting all the air out of my lungs. So I couldn't get past like the very top of the water until my dad once told me, you have to let all your air out like this. And then there's no air in your lungs. And then you can sink down to the bottom and get that ring. But mostly when people are breathing and talking, their air is going in their lungs, and their lungs are full of air, so they're not going to float. They're not going to sink. I know, sorry about that. They're not going to sink. So, did you guys know that about swimming?
Well, I didn't.
Well, I'm telling you something. It's true. Now, when something falls into the water, here's what's funny. The water really wants to push it back out again. Did you know that? Now, sometimes it's light, so it can just stay right on the top.
Sorry, I just want to make sure.
The water's push, when it's trying to push you out, is called an upthrust. Can you guys say that with me? Up thrust.
Up thrust.
Up thrust.
Up thrust.
Now, I'm going to give you an example. This is something that floats, okay? This is a ball, but it's, I wish you could feel it. It's very hollow. There's air inside. It's not solid all the way through. It's only solid on the outside, and there's air on the inside. So it's pretty big, but guys, guess what? It floats. Now watch what happens when I try to push it back down. I try to push it. But look, the up thrust pushes it right back. Look. You can't really hold it under there. Go ahead, try, Strawberry.
I can't do it.
You can't because the up thrust is too strong in that one. Isn't that funny?
That's crazy.
Yeah. Now, a stone, I'm going to get you a stone. A stone or a rock does not have any air in it, guys. It's completely solid. It's solid. It's a solid thing. And so no matter how big the stone is, it could be a big boulder, it could be a tiny pebble. This is kind of a a little pebble. But guys, it's gonna sink. It's gonna sink because there's no air in it. See how it sank right to the bottom. Now the water wants to push it out, but it weighs too much, and the up thrust is not strong enough. It's not strong enough to pull that rock out of the water. So even though it wants to, it can't. So you just sit right over there, Mr. Rock. All right? Yeah? Now, here's a funny thing. Sometimes you want to take a bath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, and you might think, ooh, I want a really full bath because maybe I want to put some bubble bath in there and I want it really, really full. But if you fill the bathtub all the way to the top and then try to get in, guess what? A lot of times some of the water will come over the edge. It will overflow a little bit because you know what? When you take your body and go into that bathtub, you are taking up some of the space, and so the water is coming right out. So you, when you weren't in there, the water is all the way up to the top, right, guys?
Yeah.
But when you put your body in there, guess what? Your body's taking up the water space, and it's pushing the bath water out of the way so you can sit in there. So your body is, pushing the water out of the way, and the water has to go somewhere, right? Yeah. So it's like it can't fit in the bathtub because you filled it up too high, so it falls under the ground. So we have to be careful when we fill up a bathtub that we make sure that we have enough space for our body to get in and that the water doesn't go all over the floor. Right?
That will make quite a mess.
It will make a mess, I'll tell you. Now we're going to talk about icebergs. Have you guys ever seen an iceberg before? Maybe a picture of an iceberg? Do you know what an iceberg is? Strawberry, do you know?
A block of ice.
It is, but where is this block of ice, this iceberg?
In the ocean?
In the ocean. And it's like a mountain of ice, and it floats in the sea. Even though it's so big, it floats. And really, it floats. It's kind of, you can kind of see the top of it, so it doesn't float completely under the water. You can see the top of the iceberg. Most of it is underwater, but it's still floating. These huge icebergs in the sea. Can you believe that?
That's insane.
I know. Now, remember, if an object is light, it will float. Ice floats, right?
Yeah.
But just barely, because it floats very low in the water. Because some of the ice is solid, but there's still a little bit of air in that ice, right, Kyle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. That's why most of the iceberg is under the water. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you with a cup of water and some ice.
I want to see.
I know. I want to show you what an iceberg looks like. Okay. So pretend this is just the sea, okay?
Ooh.
And, first, I'm going to mark what level the water's at so we can see. Can you see that line, Kyle?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's where the water is. Now, we're adding some ice. Pretend this is a big iceberg, okay? What do you think is going to happen if I put the ice in?
I think it's going to sink a little bit, but float.
Okay, let's see. Oh, you're right. Look at some of it is
It's
kind
underwater.
of, yeah, some of it is underwater and some of it is kind of on top. Let me see if I put more in. Should I make a bigger iceberg?
Yeah.
Ooh, see, look, you can see that part of the ice is on top of the water.
And it's getting above the line.
And let's see what happens if I put in all the ice. Let's see if the water level moves. Oh my goodness. Now, where's the water level?
Oh, it's quite a bit lower.
It's quite a bit lower. It's kind of what happens. Remember, we were talking about. It's quite a bit higher. You mean?
Oh, I meant the line is quite a bit lower from the.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
No, I get it, Strawberry. No, I get it. This is kind of like, remember we were talking about when you take a bath? You guys are kind of like the ice cubes. And when you have a water at a certain level, when you get your body inside of that bathtub, the water level rises. So remember, don't fill your bathtub too high, Strawberry, because the water will splash all over the ground in the bathroom and it will be a slippery
A big
mess.
old mess.
That's what I'm thinking, right, guys?
Yeah.
Now, so if stones sink because they're solid, why don't ships sink? Why do ships float in the water, guys? Do you know why? A ship is pretty much, solid. It's made out of metal and wood and different materials. It has to be kind of solid because people go on it and, there's a lot of things that can go on a ship. Cargo and different things. So why doesn't it sink? Do you guys know?
It looks completely solid, but I believe there's some air inside.
You're absolutely right. The way that they build the ship and the way that a ship is built, it's the shape of the ship too. And there's always a portion of the ship that is hollow, so it doesn't sink to the bottom. Did you guys know that? So you might have a lot of things on the deck or even down lower. You can put a lot of things, but there's always, a ship is always built. So some of it is hollow, so it floats on the water. Now here's the problem though. Like if you have a canoe or something, have you guys ever been in a canoe before? Or even like a little blow up boat or a little paddle boat?
I've been with my grandmommy.
Have you? Now let me tell you something. If you put too many people in that boat, guess what's going to happen? It doesn't mean that the ship is going to sink, but what's going to happen is it's going to go lower and lower and lower. And finally, the surface of the water is going to be higher than the boat. And so water starts to get on the boat and then it sinks because water gets really heavy when it gets on a boat. So you don't ever want the ship to go lower than the surface of the water. So if you have too many people in a canoe or a boat, then it gets too heavy, it starts sinking down, and you start to get water in your boat, and then your boat sinks. And then you just have to swim instead of taking a ride in a boat. I know. That's the kind of cool thing about a boat, though, right, guys? Did you know that kind of air in a boat? Now, why do you think the shape is important? Why do you think the shape is important? Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you. A boat shape takes up a lot of space in the water, right, guys? And the boat pushes lots of water out of its way, especially when it's moving. It pushes a lot of water out of the way so it can go. So pushing so much water aside makes more upthrust. And the water's upthrust is so strong that the boat floats because of the way that it's moving through the water and the shape that it is. Isn't that kind of cool?
That's really cool.
I know. I think it's pretty cool. Now, this is what I was telling you about a boat. Did you hear that? I know. A boat with a really heavy load floats kind of low in the water. And a boat that has too much stuff on it or too many people on it, that's called overloaded. That's too much. So it floats too low in the water, and then water comes into the boat, then it will sink, like I was saying. And then you can't ride in the boat anymore. You have to do some swimming instead. So you have to know how many people can fit. The people who build boats know what to do. They say you can't go over this much weight. Otherwise, the boat is going to go low into the water and water is going to get in. So you just kind of have to pay attention how many people can fit in at once or how much stuff you can put on a boat. Right, Kyle?
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand, Strawberry?
Yeah, it's gonna be too heavy of a load.
It's
the boat
true.
can't handle it.
No, it's true. So I'm going to show you. I think I don't want to read anymore. What I want to do is look at some of the stuff I have, and I'm going to show you. I have my water, but I'm going to show you what I have. What is this?
A boat!
A boat. I have different sizes of the boats. Look at.
Baby boat!
A baby boat. Do I have a little boat?
Oh, maybe
okay.
that's medium
Look
boat.
at what I have.
Baby
A
boat.
tiny sailboat. Now, should we see? Okay, here's what I'm going to ask you. We're going to start with the biggest boat. Now, do you think this biggest boat, now I'm going to show you. Remember I told you, boats are usually built so there's some air on the bottom, and the way that they're shaped makes it so that it can push the water aside and the water doesn't go inside of the boat and sink it down. So what do you think is going to happen when I put this pretty big ship inside my bowl of water? Do you think it's going to sink? Do you think it's going to float, Strawberry?
I think it's gonna float.
Okay, you guys ready?
I'm ready.
All right, count to 3, guys.
1, 2, 3.
Look at that. You're right. It's pretty big, but it floats because the whole bottom part is air, right? And
Yeah.
What if I tried to put water? What's going to happen?
It might splash us.
Oh,
Oh.
now, see, this boat has such good upthrust. Look at this boat has, even though I even got some water on it, but that's okay because it must be, there's a lot of air in this boat. I'm trying to get this out. See, it's okay. Okay, we're going to try the medium-sized boat now, guys. You ready? What about this one? What do you think is going to happen?
It's gonna float.
Different. Do you think it's going to float too? Look, it looks like this part is hollow. This part almost looks like a hat. I know.
Fireman.
You ready? It does. Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Float. Right? You're
It
right.
floated.
It does float. It floats. Okay. Now what about this tiny sailboat? What do you think is going to happen?
I must say it's gonna float.
Okay, let's see.
Oh.
See, the thing about this boat is it's not made like normal boats. It's all solid. This, if you can see, even though it's really little, there's no, if you could feel it, you could feel it's not very light. They didn't have a little portion down here where there's air. It's all solid. So something that's solid, look at, doesn't even float for a second. Floats right down to the bottom. So even though this is so small, this is the only one that sunk because there's no what in it?
Air.
There's no air. Okay, let me show you something else that I have. I have 2 of these. Do you know what these are?
Spoons.
Spoons. Now this one, can you hear it?
Oh, that one looks heavy.
It's made out of metal, and this one is made out of plastic. Now, the plastic one is a little bit bigger, but the metal one is quite a bit heavier when I'm holding them in my hand. So what do you think, Kyle? What do you think about the metal spoon? What do you think is going to happen?
I think it'll sink.
Okay, Kyle thinks it's going to sink, Strawberry. What do you think?
I think he's
Okay,
right.
let's put it on there and let's see. Oh my goodness. I'm going to leave that in there. Now what, Bridget, what do you think about the plastic spoon? What do you think is going to happen?
I think it's gonna float.
Okay, let's see. Let's see. Even though it's bigger than the metal one, let's see if it's going to float.
How did you know that?
It floats. It floats. It's because, guys, it's because of the way, look at it's the way the shape of it is. Look at this whole part is kind of cut out, so it allows like air to be right there, and that part doesn't go under the surface of the water. Look. See, let me see what happens if I put a little. Ooh, see, it goes a little bit lower. So I filled up that part. But look, I filled up. So that it didn't sink all the way to the bottom, but do you see how it sunk under the what is it? The surface of the water? It went a little bit under because I filled it up with water. What happens when I dump out the water? Look at, totally on top of the water again. Pretty cool. Okay, you guys ready for the next thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I have these two balls. We saw this earlier. This is bigger, but guys, listen what happens when I bounce it. There's air inside. I can feel it because it doesn't weigh very much at all. Now, even though this little golf ball is smaller, it's much heavier. And listen what happens when I bounce it. Ooh, you can hear the difference. I'm gonna do it at the same time. Oh my goodness, I can totally hear that one. So what do you think, Strawberry? I'm gonna do this one first. I'm gonna do the golf ball first. What do you think is gonna happen? I'm gonna do them both at the same time. What do you think? So tell me what you think is gonna happen. What about the green ball?
I think that one's gonna float.
Okay, what do you think about the golf ball?
I think that one might sink because
Okay.
it seems heavy.
It is. Okay, I don't think that there's any air inside, but I'm sure that there's air inside of this ball. Okay, oh, I better take that spoon out of there, huh?
Hey!
Okay. All right, you guys ready? 1, 2, 3. It kind of bounced and went down to the bottom. Now it's floating on the bottom. I mean, it sunk to the bottom, and this one is floating right on the surface. So you were right, Strawberry. Good job. Good job. Okay. You know what I have next? Okay.
Don't.
I have 2 dinosaurs. I have kind of a bigger one, pink dinosaur, very light because you know what it's filled with? Air. This one, solid. It's not, there's no air inside. It is little though. So I'm wondering what's going to happen. What do you think, Strawberry?
I think the little guys.
You want to feel them? Here, feel them.
Mm.
Okay, and then feel this one. What do you think? You're funny, Strawberry.
I think the pink guy, just like me, is gonna float.
Okay, what about this guy?
Let me think about the sink.
Okay, you guys ready? Let's count to 3.
1,
1, 2, 3. You were right. Look at this guy. Even though he's smaller, I know people sometimes think small things are going to float, but that really doesn't have anything to do with it. This guy sunk because he's solid. There's no air inside of him. And this one, he's full of air. So he floated all the way up to the top. He didn't even go. Look at, he floats right on the top. Very cool. Okay. What else do I have? I have a tiny marble. Now, what do you think? Get it, Kyle? Okay. What do you think about that marble, Kyle? It's little, so little. But
It
does
is
it?
very tiny, but like you just said,
Do you think it's
it
solid,
doesn't
or do
really
you think
matter
it's
about
hollow?
the size.
You're right. So, what do you think?
I think it's hollow. Cause I
You think it's hollow?
I mean, I'm sorry. I meant solid because I've played marbles before.
Yeah, and they're it's kind of heavy, even for being so tiny. So, what do you think?
I think if it's solid, which I
Feel
think
it.
it is.
Feel it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say sink.
Okay. Oh, you're right. That sunk right down. And what about this? Must be a friend of yours.
No,
It's a bird
I'm
too.
playing with him.
Oh, have you? What kind of a bird is this, Strawberry?
That's a duck.
It's a duck, and you can see that he has a hole in the bottom because a lot of children like to take a duck like this in the bath with him, and even if he fills up with water, you can squirt it right out.
Splish splash, I was taking him back.
Exactly. So what do you think about this duck?
It's hollow.
Okay, so what do you think?
I think it's gonna float.
Okay.
Oh,
He did.
he did.
Even though he's on his side, that's okay. Let me see what happens if he... Is that funny? Oh, he
There's
still
a lot
floats.
of bubbles. He's making
Even though he has
bubbles.
a little water in him, see, a little bit, he still had more air than water. So he still floated. Even though he was on his side, he still floated. Okay, well, this is going to be a really cool one. Okay, I'm going to show you. I have these film canisters. You guys probably don't know what these are, but before we had cameras that would take pictures that we could see right away, we used to have to put film in a camera, and the film would have to be developed. You'd have to take it to a special store, and they would print out pictures. And the film used to come in these containers. These are called film canisters. So, but they're hollow. Look, guys, they're empty.
Because the film goes
They're
inside.
empty inside because the film goes inside. But I took the film out, so look what happens. Okay, so I'm going to put the top on. Look at, totally floats on the top because it's filled with air because that's where the film canisters go. But what do you think happens if I put it in without the top? Should we see?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put it in without the top. Still floating, but watch what happens if I try to put water. Look what's happening. Look what's happening. Even though it didn't sink to the bottom, it's still sunk below the water surface because it's now full of what? It's not full of air anymore. It's full of water. It's full of water. Okay. All right, I'm going to show you something else. I don't know what that is. Okay. So, I have 2 film containers. Okay. Now I'm going to put them in the water like that. Okay, and then I have pennies. What do you think is going to happen when well, a penny is made out of metal. Is there any air in this penny?
No.
No, watch. Sinks right to the bottom. Now, how many pennies do you think it would take to make one of these film containers sink to the bottom? Can you give a guess, Kyle? How many pennies?
6.
Okay, Bridget, what do you think?
I'm going to say 8.
What do you think, Strawberry?
4.
Okay, we're going to start. Okay, here, I'm going to start. Okay, 1.
Not yet.
No. 2.
Not yet.
No. That's a funny voice.
Not yet.
Not like 3. 4.
No.
5.
Oh.
6. You see how the bottom half is dipping
It's starting
down?
to.
Uh-oh.
Not yet.
7. More.
More.
8. Oh my goodness.
Not yet.
I need more pennies. 9. More.
Not yet.
10.
Ah.
11. Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's really getting
12?
there. Oh.
Oh, 12. 12 made it heavy enough that it went below the water surface, and the water got in, and between the water and the pennies sunk to the bottom. So 12 pennies, guys. 12 pennies.
Yeah.
Very cool. So 12 pennies is what it's going to take to sink these film canisters. Now, you guys watching this video, here's what I want you to do. Everybody has a bowl, right, at their house, and everybody has water. So I think it would be really fun with your family. You guys can go around the house and collect some items, and then you can even make a chart. You could even, write down if things sink or float. It's kind of a fun thing to do, and think about it beforehand. Like, is this going to sink or is this going to float? And then you guys can try. Right?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Strawberry, thank you so much for coming
you for
and hanging out
having
with
me.
us today. Can I just shake your wing?
Yes.
Yeah. Very nice to see you.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody.
Ciao.
I hope you have a chance to, at your house, doing some sinking and floating.
Sinking and floating.
Sinking and floating experiment. So have fun with it, guys. And remember, don't fill your bathtub too high and then try to get in. Right? Okay, guys. All right. See you next time.
Woo!